today we're going to be talking about using AI and kind of going over some of the AI basics, what we can use, kind of going over all of the fun AI stuff and how we can be using it for lesson design specifically, and kind of like a general overview of AI as well. So with that said, we're going to get started. My presentations, if you have a question, please feel free to use the chat, put your question in the chat. If you need, like, you can raise your hand, you can just unmute and say, please go over that again, or any questions. So please feel free, this is your time. And so I want to make sure that we're getting the most out of it. So please utilize the chat. Please ask questions as they come up, because this time is yours. So with that, we're going to start with a little game. We are going to, and I'll put it in the chat as well. So with this game, it's called Musical Canvas. This is part of Google Arts and Culture's experimentations. They are kind of some of my favorite things. And this one in particular is called Musical Canvas. So if you go to the link in the chat, or you can click on the slides, depending on where you have it. And what this game is it's an experiment from Google Arts and Culture. Google Arts and Culture has a ton of different experiments, so I highly recommend playing around Google Arts and Culture. And if you have not done Google Arts and Culture at all, if this is your very first time, really highly recommend just exploring Google Arts and Culture in general, because you can take tours of museums, they have like articles that you can do. It's one of my like favorite little things to kind of play around with and to kind of see and to kind of explore. So with Google Arts and Culture, what this is going to do is you're going to create a drawing, and it's going to, based on your drawing, it's going to generate music. So we have some tools here that we can use, and we can draw. So when I use this in class, sometimes I like to give a prompt. So sometimes I might say, like, draw what your like summer vacation was, or your dream summer vacation, or how are you feeling today? Or like, I might give a prompt. This I want to leave it a little bit more open-ended. So if you want to like draw how you're feeling about the upcoming school year, or draw your dream vacation, you can. If not, just explore the tools. But with this, you have a couple different tools that we can use here. So I can kind of draw. Of course, like I'm doing this like on the fly, so it's going to be, I have not the most artistic ability, but that doesn't matter. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes to draw. It'll take about 2 minutes to kind of explore, to draw, and to use it. So if you are just joining us, a couple people have just joined us. The sign-in is pinned at the top of the chat. We are experimenting and playing with Google Arts and Culture, this musical canvas. So leaving it kind of open-ended, whatever you feel like drawing, or if you want to draw your dream vacation. I love the water, so I'm going to draw some watery type things. I'm going to give you a couple minutes just to play. See some heart from Juanita.
My kid is actually right here next to me, and she was like, this is cool. So she's played with it.
I love this. I love doing this at the beginning of, well, for beginning of sessions with like adults too, but like at the beginning of class too, just like, okay, we just need to like calm down and just like bring our energy back and kind of refocus. It's a really great way to like refocus the students and stuff, or just to like start the beginning of class.
Is this something that's like free to use? Like we don't need any like sign up or anything?
No, you just use it. Yeah, it's through, I'll show you exactly how to get to it and like the ways that I go. You can use the link that I provided too, but we can just, it is free to use and to go through. And so I'll show you, yeah, I'll show you how to get to it from Google Arts and Cultures, but hi. All right. So once you have your drawing, and so when I do this in the classroom, I usually do this, it's a little bit different in the virtual setting because I can't like kind of gauge where you guys all are. But in the classroom or in an in-person setting, what I usually do is like, you have 5 minutes and we're just going to draw, and nobody click generate music until the time is up. So really kind of give them time. And then I'll say, okay, everybody now click generate music together. And so when you click generate music, this guy over here is going to think, and he's going to give some descriptions. So bright, playful melody in a major key, transition to a flowing like waves, light, high-pitched music. So it describes it. And then there was mine. So it's a little bit more like classical, like upbeat thing. And so this is a really, really nice way of like trying to get music and then to see how we're feeling, how it can evoke that music. I've had, when I've done this in the classroom, I've had students that like got upset because it evoked, oh yeah, it's a awesome one, waterfall of various tones. And then what I usually do is like turn to a partner, turn to your group and describe what it is and how the music, like what you drew, kind of like turn and talks there. And had a couple of students share out. So really great way to just get started. This is also really good. Like I've done this like with adults with the text of just like when we come back from lunch, we just need a way to kind of get in and just like refocus. Yes, and it's a great activity for all levels. And but I've had students that like this one student got upset because he got country music and he's like, why did I get country music? And so we like talked about like, what did he put that would invoke this? What would he put, like what would evoke? And then I've had other students that were like specifically trying to get a certain style of music. And so they were like trying to recreate like their favorite artist's like album cover to try to like get that music. So this is also a really great way to get students to talk about how imagery creates tones, how we can like evoke emotions through imagery. So as an ELA teacher, this is also like really awesome that we can start talking about like symbolism and colors and what that means and how it's invoking certain like emotions from us. So that is through Google Arts and Culture. And so how you get to it, and you can't see my tab, but you can just Google, I'll just type it here so you can see it, Google Arts and Culture. And if you have not explored with Google Arts and Culture, this is one of my favorite like fun things to do. I'm gonna say no thanks just because I don't need that. But you can play, you can explore museums and art and other cultures. And then what I like to do is I just put like AI experiments because I'm specifically looking for AI ones. And in those experiments, they have 17 experiments related to AI. So these games are called experiments to Google. And so I can kind of view them and find like experiments that are this. They have more experiments that aren't AI, but highly, highly recommend. And we'll play a couple more throughout the session. But just want to point out those Google Arts and Cultures because I love it. And I've taken tours, like had students like go through a museum gallery as we're like studying a piece or like studying things. So really, really great resource that is free to use, and we can use this with students. So just want to point that out there. So with that, we are going to cover some of the AI basics and what AI is and kind of covering how we can use AI in the classroom. So when we talk about AI, there's some definitions where I just want us to all make sure that we're on the same page for. So there's predictive AI. So this is what makes like predictions. So your algorithms, you're on TikTok, all of a sudden you're getting all the cat videos. It's because that's like predicting what you might want to see, or like predictive text. That's all predictive AI. Been around for a while. We also have but what like has caused the hubbub is the generative AI, and that's the creating new content such as text, images, or music based on our interactions. And then the other term is prompt. So when we talk about prompts in terms of AI, that is the inputs that we are giving the AI system to create that output. So generative AI has been around for a little while-ish, but we know, of course, when ChatGPT really hit the scene and became like available in a mass market, it really caused an uproar. And then when we talk about prompts, we're talking about what we're writing and how it feeds the system with that. One thing that has kind of come up is the importance of prompt writing, and we're going to talk about the importance of prompt writing and how we can be more specific in prompt writing within those systems as well. Before I get started though, and before we really start diving into AI, I really want us to make sure that we're aware. As a district stance, we are taking things very cautiously, and there's several reasons for that. One, we have federal policies such as the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA, and COPPA that we need to abide by. So basically, with those bottom line is we need to make sure that we're protecting our students' privacy and data. And that is one reason that we have been very, very cautious with putting AI systems in front of students as a district, because we need to make sure that our students' privacy and that their data is protected, and then also making sure that our own staff privacy and data is protected. So those are federal policies that we need to abide by. But on the other hand, we also realize this potential AI divide, and the National EdTech Plan that is no longer available on our national guidelines, but the National EdTech Plan that was released in 2024 did call out 3 divides with technology, and specifically, like when we talk about AI, this is the same divides. So we talk about access, so a divide in access, what devices students have available and that staff have available, design, how we're designing with technology, how we're using it in our lesson plans, how we're creating with technology, and then that use, like how are students using and how are we using technology. So making sure that we're not just like sitting them in front of a computer, but that we're actively engaging students with technology and creativity and things like that. So those are a lot of the things that we have kept in mind as we have started, like, had conversations in this district about AI and usage and all that. And the number one thing that has been our priority has been that, like, safety. So with in our district, we do have an AI committee. If you're interested in being a part of it, please let Jen and I know, because we would love more voices and more people involved in this. But our AI committee has created a set of guidelines. We have the dates here and the versions because AI is constantly changing. So we want to make sure that we are keeping up to date. And so we will constantly revise and look at our guidelines with this. It's also one reason that we have chosen to go guidelines versus policy right now, because we wanted to make sure that we were adapting to any new thing that came out with AI because it was so rapidly changing. But with this guidelines, and you can, these guidelines are found on our EdTech portal. You can also click here and pull them up if you want to read through them more fully. But there's 3 main things that we have in mind with our policy or with our guidelines, and that is privacy and data security. So we want to make sure that we are really looking at the apps that we're using and how we're using them and making sure that our privacy and data security is fully protected. It's also one of the reasons we have not jumped totally onto like AI platforms initially, because we wanted to make sure when we first started looking at AI platforms, a lot of them had like their data privacy and privacy agreements did not meet our standards and did not meet what we needed them to meet. Since then, companies have really started changing that, but we take a hard look at their terms of service and their terms of use. So with that said, we want to make sure that we're using approved AI apps within our district as we're kind of looking through things. We also look at the ethical use. So when we talk about ethical use in terms of use guidelines, that we're emphasizing fairness and equity and academic integrity with it. And also kind of like making sure that we're not just like sitting students in front of a computer and getting them, that we're really looking at how we're using and the purpose behind the tools that we're using them. And then responsible use. So pedagogy over technology, and that making sure that it benefits staff and students' well-being. So I'm a big proponent. If you've been to the sessions, you probably have seen this next slide a billion times. And I don't care if you're sick of it because I'm going to keep harping on this. But that one thing is that technology is the tool and not the learning outcome. So whether we're talking about AI or technology in general, that we are making sure that the reason and the purpose behind the reasons we use these tools is like we have that clear purpose, not just because it's a cool, shiny, flashy thing. We want to make sure that there's a clear reason and purpose of why we're using any sort of technology, including AI. So this image is over 10 years old now, I think, but I think it ages like wine. It's better because we really don't want our students just be making prezzies or creating AI images. We want to make sure that we have a clear skill that they're developing so that they're raising awareness, that they're critically thinking about what they're producing or what they're receiving, that they're becoming critical to consumers of technology and media versus just like following it blindly. So making sure that we are making right decisions there. All right. So that's my big spiel, like kind of introduction into it. So now let's kind of jump into kind of AI prompt writing and how we can do it. So biggest thing with AI, when we talk about AI, and I'm going to talk about like kind of how we should like do some prompt writing, and then we'll talk about like ways we can use it. So with AI, we really are looking at like effective prompt writing, because we know that there's some problems with AI, that there's some biases, that it may not be like totally what we want. And so the best way we can kind of combat that is by having effective prompt writing. So Google has released this acronym PARTS. And so this is Google's way of having an effective prompt and making sure that we're being specific in our prompt writing. So first thing we're going to look at is persona, tell them who we are, the aim, what we want to achieve, the recipients, who is it for, the theme or the tone, what style do we want, and the structure. So what format do we want to put this in? So for example here, I can say, sorry, my throat was getting a little dry there. Okay, so for Google's method here, so you can say, I am a 10th grade history teacher at a high school in California. That's who the persona the AI is taking. Write a 15-minute lesson plan for my class about the Gettysburg Address and the effects it had on the Civil War. Includes two structured student talk activities, and provide the lesson plan as a table with time markers for each activities. So the more specific we can be, the better outputs we're going to get. So some examples here, and I know it might be a little bit hard to see. Oh, if you're, I was looking at prompts, or parts, the acronym parts, I was like, okay, how would this look? So these are two more examples from Gemini of like, give me an example of like the parts structure. So you could say like a persona, you're a debate coach, your aim is to have thoughtful discussion on a controversial topic, the recipients are high school students in debate club, and so forth. Or you can be a creative writing instructor that you want to generate ideas for a short story for middle school audience, and that you want a few possible character types to include. So again, the more specific we can be, the better outputs that we'll have with this. So why is this important? So I did a side-by-side comparison of Adobe Firefly and Crayon, which are image generators. And level 1, I just said, give me, like my prompt was just a teacher. I want a prompt of a teacher. So we can see just with the prompt of a teacher, we have some like differences. So Adobe Firefly, it's all male with glasses. And then we have a little bit more variety. Some of them aren't even teachers, some of them are students that are seen in here. So I said, okay, give me a realistic female teacher sitting at a desk. And here we have Adobe Firefly, give me some female teachers. I don't know what Crayon was doing, but there's only one human looking teacher sitting here. The rest are animalistic. Like I think there's like a cat down here. There's like an ape. I'm not even sure what this one, I think this one's a combination of one. So I didn't realize that I needed to like say a human looking teacher, but apparently I needed to put that as well. So then I got a little bit more specific. A realistic female teacher with blonde hair and black glasses sitting at a desk grading papers with a concentrated, thoughtful look. So here I got a little bit more of what I was looking for when it comes to teachers, or to like looking at them. This Crayon, I think, still looks like, I think all the teachers still look really stressed out compared to Adobe Firefly, but you know, we have what that is. But the more more prompts that we can put in, the more descriptive that we can be with our prompts, the better outputs we're going to get with this. And this could help fight some of that biases that we see with AI, help kind of combat, and to really kind of narrow in on what we're looking for. So anytime you use AI, the more specific that you can be, the better outputs we're going to get from it. So for an example, if I go back to that same prompt that I had from earlier when I was looking at parts, if I just put, and I use Claude for this, if I just put, write a lesson plan about the Gettysburg Address, It's going to give me a decent lesson plan. Like it's going to kind of draw from what it knows and give us a pretty decent lesson plan. It'll have the learning objectives, the materials, activities that I can use. I have a link to the full doc if you guys want to see that lesson plan, but it's going to give me it. But I'm probably going to have to heavily modify it anyways to really kind of fit, you know, like our structure of GRR or using CM frames or how exactly I want to put it in here. Versus if I put in that whole prompt, I'm a 10th grade history teacher at a school in California. I want a 15-minute lesson plan. I want 2 structured student talk activities, and it's going to give me a way better output and lesson. I'm still going to modify it. I'm still going to have human eyes on this, but it's going to give me a way better lesson than just putting in create this lesson plan with it. So the more detailed that I can get, the better it's going to be. So my two structured student talk activities that gave me was think, pair, share, square, and then silent debates are the 2 ones that it gave me. And then I can have a conversation with it. One thing when we're talking about prompt writing and AI is it's not just like give and get, and then you're done. You can have a conversation. So say like, I've already done a lot of think, pair, shares in my class. I want something different. You could ask of that, have it modify it, have that conversation with it to build what you need. Now, with that said, whenever we use AI, we need to have human eyes on this. So I'm not just going to take this lesson, be like, I'm done for the day, and like use it without really looking at it and evaluating it. We always need human eyes on anything we do with AI and to really like scrutinize it, to evaluate it, to really make sure it's what we need. So with that said, we're going to play a different game. And this is called Say What You See. And so I'm going to put it back into the chat so you guys can have it there too. And what this game is, this is another Google Arts and Culture experiment. So we can use this with students. We can play this, use it with students. Let me change tabs. All right, so once you get here, we can launch this experiment. And what this game is it's going to give you an image, and you need to include information about it in order to try to closely match it. So if you begin, oh, this is the most challenging one, but I can put in my caption here. So say what you see and try to be as descriptive as possible. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes to kind of play around with this and to see what you get. And if you're brave enough, you can put your math percentage in the chat. My first one, I think I got 71%. That's the one I think is the most challenging one to do. But if you're feeling brave, you can put yours in there. 84, yay. Jen had one yesterday where like, it was like almost spot on and it still only gave her like 84% or 86%. I was like, dang, they're a tough crowd. And again, this is something that we can do with students too, to talk about like prompt writing and begin the discussions about prompt writing or like looking at and like using AI. One thing that I really, really like about that game, too creative in the language. Yeah, sometimes that happens. And especially with this one, we have a character limit. So that like, sometimes that happens. But what I really like about this too is that it kind of forces students to really look at writing. Now, as an ELE teacher, I always say like, be descriptive, like really paint the picture for your audience. And it's really hard for students, I think, to really kind of grasp that. And now I have a visual that I can show them, like to see. So for example, I had a student who had I don't know if anybody else got the bowl of ramen, and he put like noodles, and I forget else how he described it. Noodles with vegetables. And it gave him like a pasta dish. And he's like, how come I got a pasta dish? And I was like, well, because you put in noodles, which like evokes like pasta-y type dishes versus like ramen, which is like a different format. So really talking about like being descriptive and really having a way to really kind of show that with students. We've done a similar activity, and I'm going to share with this. We haven't been promoting Padlet just because their pricing structure has changed, and we'll see. So I'm going to try to recreate this activity using some of the other things. Like I think we can do this in Canva now. So stay tuned this year for that, because I think I'm going to recreate this activity using a different platform. but I did this with students where I did this AI generated image. I love pink and I love flamingos. And so, and I love Palm Springs aesthetics. So I was trying to like recreate that. And so I took a picture and then took a screenshot of it into Padlet and then had students try to match this. And so students' goal was to try to use language. Yeah, it's not easy. And like to kind of rematch this image. And so we can see we kind of got close, but nobody was like perfect with it. And one thing I really wanted to showcase with students was one about language, about like the vocab that we're using, the terms that we're using. And then two, to really kind of start illustrating how hard it is to get AI to do it what we want it to do and how descriptive we have to be and how like, hey, don't just use AI to like write your essay because it's probably not going to be what you really want it to be. Like we still need to edit and revise it and like do a bunch of stuff. So this is one way I did it. The other way that I did it with students too is to have them design their dream house. So having them really like, I taught Avid, and so I wanted them to think about the future. And so this was a really good activity too to get students to say, okay, do you want a realistic house? So you need to put in the term realistic. Do you want a watercolor? And so really kind of looking at and then being able to like talk about our greenhouse. This is one of my favorites, fancy summer house with a pool and palm trees and a Lamborghini in the driveway, real nice Fort Light Mama next to the pool. So high school sophomores, man. But really kind of like getting them to think about it. Now, this was done in Padlet. Like I said, our licenses for Padlet is a little funky. So if you want to do it, please reach out. I think we can now do this in other, like with Canva and stuff like that. So if you're interested, I don't had to include the llama. But if you are interested in doing an activity like this with your students, please reach out because I'd love to like be a think tank and like talk to you about how we can do this with students. But this is a really, really great way for how we can have students start thinking about language, how we can like think about language and how we can do prompt writing with that. So with that, we're still pretty good. If you guys are all feeling good, we have a break time, but I'm going a little fast. So if you guys want a break or if you're okay with us like pushing through a break and then we can take a break at a different time. So if you're following along the slides, I'm going to skip the break and we'll come back to the break if we're all okay with that. So looking at our prompt writing, push through the break. Yeah, I think I'm going a little faster than I intended, but that's okay because we're all right on through. So looking when we are using prompts and when we're looking at AI and looking at how we're using AI and how we could potentially be using it to writing lesson plans, how we could be using it for our needs as a thought partner, really thinking about why we're using it. So I took this image and sorry, I can't get, I don't have like a hard copy or I only had a screenshot from the slide from RTI, but this was taken from RTI, the RTI conference and thinking about how we do. So we all should be pretty familiar with our PLC process with the plan, do, study, and act. And so really looking about what do we want all students to learn, looking at identifying essential learnings and targets, looking at gaining shared clarity on essential learnings, looking at our defining grade level expectations for those essential learnings, and how we plan instructions. So when we are using AI and especially when we're using it in like as a teacher, really looking about what we are looking at doing with it. So some ways that we can think about using AI for lesson design. And this was taken from the RTI conference. And so if you want the full breakdown, you can look at this, I think it's like a 16-page document. And what I did, this was a lot for me to look at. And so what I did is I just really narrowed it down into this one pager, technically 2 pages, but you get the point. But really looking at questions that we can have through. And if you want a hard copy of this, please let me know and I will be happy to print it out for you and laminate it to you and deliver it to you. So because I really was picturing in the way I would use this is having this like next to my desk and having it just like as a resource that I can go through. So there are a couple ways that we can use AI for lesson design. So really thinking about like how can we deconstruct an essential standard? How can we look at increasing our DOK levels of assessment questions? How can we develop proficiency skills? And then looking to see if I can do it there. Thinking about it as a thought partner. Yeah, and if you want to have a hard copy, just email me, or I'll try to like get down your names, and I will make sure you guys are getting that hard copy. But with that, really looking at having that conversation with AI. So for example, if I go to Gemini, I'm gonna go to gemini.google.com. I encourage Gemini because we do, if you use your school account with Gemini, we do have, it is part of our ecosystem in it. So we all have access to Gemini. And with Gemini, it is part of our education system, it is in our ecosystem. And so Gemini is, they're not going to take our information and use it to train greater AI models. It stays within our network. So that's one reason we are really promoting Gemini when we talk about AI. And I'll talk more about that later. But if we go to Gemini, we can have that. So for example, I have here unpacking the standards. Oops, so I'm going to go through it. So I can say, can you unpack this standard? And let me actually just take this whole thing and I'll start a new one. And so I'm just going to write that first one. Can you unpack this standard, RL 9.10.1, cite strong and strong evidence? So I have here, it says breakdown. So this is what this means. This is what to support analysis means. This is all like it's breaking down exactly what it means. And then this requires students to read carefully and understand what a literary text says, to think critically about what the text implies, to use specific quotes or references. So really breaking it down. But like I said earlier, we want to have students to really think about using AI, or we want to use AI as a chat, like think of it as a conversation you're having. So looking at our handout here, I'm just going to follow this box here, this yellow box. So I put, can you unpack this standard? And now I'm going to say, list the 3 most important prerequisites. And I lost my Gemini chat. 3 most important prerequisites. And if I can spell on a summer afternoon on a Friday. Oh, and I ignore that question, but you get the point with that. So then I can have it ask, okay, what are the 3 most important prerequisites that a student should know? So we should be able to have a fundamental understanding of vocabulary and syntax knowledge. We can go through that. And so I'm having this chat conversation and I'm literally just going back and forth with it and asking it to deconstruct it further. So for example, and I'm going to just show you the chat that I already created. So we can have activities, we can have it go through, and the purpose of having this, if I go through here, is really to use each question one right after another and really kind of get this. So give me a learning progression for teaching this standard to grade level students. Give me 2 resources that I can create to help 10th grade students. So really making it and having it a conversation is a really great way to use AI instead of just like, okay, I'm going to ask it a question, then it's going to give me an answer, and then I'm done. No, like ask it deeper questions, have it modify things, have it like really go through it and give it that deeper understanding with it. So what I want you guys to do right now is using Gemini, so you can use gemini.google.com, and I'll put it in the chat too, is look through this handout and start playing with asking questions. So you can take one of your standards and go through it. You can ask it to develop a lesson plan for you, but be specific. So I'll give you guys about 10 minutes right now to kind of play around with Gemini, to kind of look through this this paper here and to explore it a little bit more. So I'll give you guys about 10 minutes to do so. And if you have any questions, unmute, talk to me, put in the chat, whatever we need. Right. And looking at your question, Jesus, about sending it to. Now, this is where I'm going to get a little tricky and I'm going to need your guys' like support because we have, there's a couple of us that have the premium version of it because we were testing it out, seeing if it, looking at cost of it. So I'm not sure if this is a feature available to everybody or whatnot. So I'm going to show you something, but I don't know if you guys have it. So you'll have to let me know or not. But at the bottom of the Gemini output here, you can share, you might be able to see a share and export. And here is, you can export it to docs or draft an email. So if you look down here, give me a thumbs up if you see the share and export and if you can do that. All right, good. Good. There's a couple things that I'm like, I don't know which feature it is or if it's not. So I want to make sure. I hope it's for everybody, but sometimes it gets a little tricky. So yeah, so then here you can export it to a Google Doc and be able to have it that way. Ooh. So when I export it to Doc, this is what I would have. And then it all goes through. And then again, feel free to modify this. Be like, I don't like what you wrote. Don't modify this. Or actually, I need it for this many. Or can you level it up? Or can you level it down? This is really meant to be like a conversation. Like think of it as that thought partner with it.
Amber, I think I kind of missed what you just did because I was looking at the Gemini page.
Yes.
It sounded like, okay, so I'm on the Gemini page and say I want to share this with myself so I can like send the list to my email or Google Drive or something. Is that what you were just showing us?
Yes. So at the very bottom here, now let me zoom. Let's see if I can zoom in here. Oh, it's not letting me zoom in. But so sorry, it's a little small. But down here at the bottom of the output, you should have the share and export, and you can export it to Docs or draft in Gmail.
Okay, thank you. I see it now.
Yeah. And Servando, you have the Pro because you're an ed tech. So all ed techs have the Pro version. And then you can also copy the responses. So if you want to put it someplace else, you can also copy it and listen to it as well. You can also look at the sources here. So as you guys are playing around, if you look at the sources with Gemini, one thing that AI companies are starting to do a little bit more is to kind of look at the back end thinking. That's one major problem we've had with AI is that has been totally transparent of where they're getting their information or how they're getting it, where it's going to. But if you look at sources now, you can kind of see where Google is drawing from. And so I can have these sources as like kind of see what the back end thinking might be with the system. Oh, then it might be just premium. So they're changing it a lot too. So sometimes I'm like, okay, is it added? Is it not? So if you don't see the sources, then maybe it might just be the premium version, but it could be coming through. Yeah, Julio, that's a great suggestion. Is like ask it about the follow-up questions. One thing that I will say is that I want everybody, and if I can't emphasize this enough, that AI is a people pleaser. They're not, it's not concerned with being right, it's concerned of making you happy. And so, one thing that we have to be very cautious of when we're using AI is that it really wants to make us happy and it really wants to be like a yes man for us. And so sometimes what they give us is not accurate because it's more concerned of like trying to answer it for us than it is about like reality or like fact-based things. So that's one thing too, why we always need to have the eyes on anything that we produce with AI, because it is like a yes man. And we are starting to see some really weird cases coming out with AI. You guys may have seen the article that was released this summer where the guy like proposed to his chatbot. He has like a girlfriend or a spouse, but he like still like he fell in love with the AI system. Well, a lot of the AI system is like mirroring what you want and how you want it to be. So sorry, I'm hearing that, oh, their timer. I thought I turned it off. So be very, very cautious too of like asking it for sources. I've had times, and there was a school district somewhere in the Central Valley, and I can't remember where, but they got on a fire because they were trying to show how incidents of bad publicity for their school district increased the amount of like hate mail that they were getting. And so they were trying to show that. And so AI came up with something and actually cited real articles and like real news stories, but the quotes that it was using as evidence were totally made up. So even though that it was citing real sources and real articles that you could go to and find, the quotes that it was using as evidence was false. And so really we have to like have that level of scrutiny when we're using AI to make sure. I used it during my grad school. I had for research. I was like looking for research discovered because I think when the school district was actually going through, and I think parents. Oh, this is really bad. I'm like totally not giving you guys this information, but because I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, it was like actually like the school board or the parents like that discovered that it was like false. Like they went through and realized that the quotes weren't in the articles at all. So like yeah, they were like really under a level of scrutiny and stuff. But like I've had the experience too of like I asked it for research articles, like I needed academic articles based on like the topic I was doing, if it could go through. Yeah, I don't have time to vet that either, but you know, some people do. But so I would look up articles based on what like AI recommended, right? And some of the articles like didn't even exist. So like it totally just made up like articles for me, even though yeah, so totally we need to like make sure that we're vetting through articles, that we're really vetting through what we're seeing, because that is the one thing is that AI wants to be a people pleaser, and it will like learn how you're talking, how you want things answered, and so it will like be to please you. That's also why I also recommend don't name your AI. What if you're like using Gemini all the time? Don't give it a name. Don't humanize it, because we are seeing some really weird psychological effects happening. And so don't name your AI system is my recommendation. Keep it totally separate. Remember that it is a computer and that it is meant to please you and to kind of mimic what you're asking for. I know, and already our phones hear us too. I know, I always think that too. I don't like have cameras around my house, and then every time I'm like, I just want people to be able to hack into it. I'm like, I have a watch, I have a phone, like they're already doing it if they want to. So, yeah, we're already there too. So with that said, looking at the district tools that we have, we know that AI is popping everywhere, and it is very hard to like, it is like playing whack-a-mole right now to figure out where it's popping up and how it's being used already. And things like every time we talk to a company, they're like, we can release this and you have to like turn it off or on. So it is everywhere, as we know. So some district tools that we have, I highly recommend if you are using it for school stuff, like what we just did, a breakdown the standards, use Gemini, because it is our closed network. And so it's not going to go through the greater AI system or anything like that. I know all of the like mentioning things and then you get the notification about it. Big Brother is here. They're listening. So very scary and weird when you really think about it. But so district tools we have Gemini. Highly recommend it just because it is part of our ecosystem and we have it in there. I'm going to show you Notebook LM as well because it is one of my favorites. But we also know that it is embedded everywhere. So we have Quiz AI, we have Padlet, Canva, Formative, Adobe Express. Pretty much almost every, I saw Turnitin is like releasing their AI reader thing too. So a lot of our programs that we already have purchased have an AI component within them. Now, the general rule of thumb with our district guidelines is that if it's part of something we have purchased, if it is part of an approved app, it is okay to use. That means we have looked at their privacy and data agreements that it is already part of there. So you can use it, you can do with it, like go through there. Yeah, like the Google Suite. So Gemini is part of that Google Suite, you can use it. Some tools to explore with caution. These are not district apps that we have, but they're big ones. And so the ones I don't use them because you're probably using them or you're already having that. Yes, so with students, so we have a little bit of a gray area. So we do not have any, I've been calling it student-facing AI apps, but there's programs that we have like Padlet and Canva and Adobe Express that have AI in them that students can use. But we don't have like a chat bot that students can use yet, like Claude or Gemini yet for students. Gemini does have, and you guys might have seen or heard things about that, they do have a Gemini for teens. Yeah, if it's part of a system we already have, then it's okay to use. But you may have heard like Google has Gemini for teens, but we have not approved that and have not turned that on for students because one, there's not a really good oversight. There's very like strict things that we're looking for when we're looking at putting it in front of students. And so when we're looking at like chat body type things for students, I'm really concerned is that I, as a teacher, need to be able to see what students are doing with that AI system. So Gemini for Teens is out there. We have turned it off as a district because there's not that teacher oversight that's available to happen yet. And not just because I want to make sure that they're safe, that is my number one priority, but two, as a teacher, if I'm teaching the students how to use AI, I need to be able to see their prompt writing and to see what they're doing, to see where they're stumbling, where they might need to be more specific. I need to see all those details, and Gemini for Teens does not have that yet. So you might have heard, or if you've seen anywhere or have seen the updates from Google that Gemini for Teens is there, we as a district has not turned it on because of that oversight. And we've been asking Google for it. They're probably sick of me because I bring it up all the time that I need to have this as a teacher. And so that's just some of the things there. But if it is part of like something that we have purchased, something that has been approved by a district that we have, then it is okay to use with them. Yes, and we'll talk about like some other ways we can talk about like handwriting and how we're having them kind of go about that. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Some tools to explore with caution. ChatGPT and Claude are two major AI systems. I personally use Claude a lot in my own personal stuff. I used it a lot when I was in grad school and to like kind of looking through there. So we can use it. Suno gets brought up in a lot of EdTech conferences too because it writes songs. So I want to mention there. But anytime, and I'll go over kind of the rules again, we want to make sure that we're not using personal identifying information and that we are being really safe and cautious with it. And so I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Tools that we are exploring. There's some big EdTech companies out there that are coming out of there. So Brisk Teaching, Magic School, School AI, and CoGrader are some companies that we have been in talks with, that we are talking to, but we have not moved forward with them. So just so that you're aware that there's some like behind the scenes things happening with some companies that we might be, or that we have talked to, that we've kind of are exploring to see whether or not we can promote them or purchase with them. But district tools that we have with that. So with that said, I just turned this around. I didn't. Okay, change the slide. So I'm going to harp on this again. So you're going to see the slide again. But anytime we use AI, we need to make sure that we are following some guidelines. So make sure that we're looking at what the data privacy policies are, There's a lot of companies out there that are not transparent on what they're doing, on where your information is going, and what they're using with their information. For example, if you look at Meta and like Facebook chat and Messenger, they take way more data than they need. And I'm guilty because I have Facebook and I have Messenger. But if you really look at their fine print, they take a lot more data than they actually need. And so before, especially if we're using like in our work setting, what are the data privacy policies? Kind of I like to take a glance and see what data they are taking. Don't use personal identifying information. Don't use names or anything that we can like ID numbers, anything like that. Of course, don't put your social security number, but like really make sure that we are removing all of the personal identifying information. So if you're writing a letter of recommendation, remove the student's name, put in a fake name, and then just replace that fake name with the real name later. Making sure that data collected complies with our national, state, and district policies. You don't have to be an expert on this. Send it our way and we can check it for you. Choosing tools that are transparent, being mindful of biases and misinformation, and reassess often. So when we use a tool, make sure that we are really looking and we're not just trusting that tool because it worked awesome for like the first month. We do know that like AI, as more and more people are using it and as it's getting more information, it's actually getting a little dumber, which I don't know what that says about us as a society, but hasn't been as accurate with that. Yes, and then my favorite term is the humans in the loop with that. Having that clear purpose in how we're using the tool, and then being transparent with AI. If you are using AI to help create stuff or to do things, I am very transparent in the classrooms with it and how I'm using AI to kind of showcase and model good digital citizenship with it. So that's just kind of overall. We're going to come back to that. But I want to show you first one of my favorite tools, and this is Notebook LM. And let me put it in the chat. Yeah, Stephen is big into that too, because I think any of us on the EdTech committee or the AI committee are very, did I do that right? Nope, it's notebook.google.com. It should have hyperlinked, but it didn't. So let me copy it again and paste it into the chat. Okay, so Notebook LM is one of my favorite tools, and there's a couple reasons for this. But Notebook LM is a Google product, so it's part of our Google ecosystem, and we can use it. And there's a couple of reasons why I like Notebook. And the main reason is I can upload all of my sources into here. And actually, let me go to Learning Forward first. So I was at Learning Forward, and if you have gone to conferences, you know that sometimes you get a lot of notes and a lot of resources, and then it's like overwhelming and you get that like conference like fatigue. So what I did when I went to Learning Forward in December was I uploaded all of my notes and the PowerPoint presentations from the sessions that I was in. So on the side here is my sources. Now, the thing I like about Notebook LM is it only draws from the sources that I include. So it's not drawing from the greater AI universe. It's only drawing from what I'm telling it to draw from. Then in here, I can have a chat with it. So I might say like, what are the top 2 priorities I should focus on as a teacher? And then it's going to draw from my information and give me a reading from there, being a little slow. The other thing that I like about it is if you look on this notes side here, is that it automatically has a couple of things. Okay, so here it came in through. So as a teacher, based on this conference, the 2 things I should focus on is high expectations teaching and active engagement and student voice. So here, it's just synthesizing that information. It's like giving me that information. And it also includes the sources where it came from. So it's showing me this, it came from this slide. This also came from this slide, and how it's drawing from these sources here. As a teacher, I also like about this because I can ask it for study guides, for briefing documents, from timelines, from frequently asked questions. And then, if you notice this audio overview, it creates a podcast based on the sources that I gave it. Now, this one is a little bit of a longer podcast. It's 46 minutes.
Welcome
Let's
to
see.
a deep dive into responsive curriculum design.
Oh, cool.
And let me just make sure, give me a thumbs up if you could hear that podcast. I just want to make sure the speaker or that I have the settings right. So let's listen.
We're going to explore what makes a curriculum truly rigorous and engaging for students like you.
Sounds good.
We've got a mix of sources today: presentation slides, professional development resources, and guides on student engagement and classroom observations.
It's going to be fascinating to connect the dots between research, practical tips, and real-world examples
Yikes.
that you.
So this podcast was created within minutes based on the sources that I gave it. Mind blown when I saw this. With this, I actually made my husband, because he is not an educator, we were going to Paso Robles, and sometimes when we're in the car taking like long trips together, I'm like, hey, I have a captive audience. And so on my phone, I pulled up Notebook LM and I was like, you have to see this. And I created the podcast on the road and made him listen to it, because I was just like, so like, you have to see this. Now, how we can use this in the classroom. So that I used it for conferences because I wanted to kind of synthesize that information. I also did it like our department creates a shared slide deck. And so I had it create a podcast based on our shared slide deck. But you can also put in for, like, I did a 7th grade world history unit. And so I took all of the documents from unit 5 of the 7th grade world history curriculum. I uploaded it into here. And now I can say things like, and I can choose as many sources as I want. So with this, I have all the sources here. Now I need a study guide for unit 5. So it's generating the study guide. It's taking a minute to generate. It's going to generate in a minute. While it's doing that, I can also select, maybe I don't need all of these sources. Maybe I just want to look at this presentation. So my students, as a teacher, I did director's instruction on the Dark Ages, but now I want to create an essay for 7th graders based on this PowerPoint. And so now I have an essay that I can give. So I did director instruction one day. Now maybe I can turn it around, and a couple days later, I want them to revisit the content in a new way. So now I can have them read and annotate this and do like a deeper reading of this essay, and have them relook at that content in a brand new, different way. So that's some ways that we can use it with here. Here's the study guide that I got. So here's the study guide. It gives me some questions, some answer keys with this. You can share notebooks. So I think this would be really awesome as a PLC to have a shared notebook that you all can interact and kind of like look at through together, and to be able to kind of really look through things with it. So with Notebook LM, think of each one of these notebooks as that notebook. Like, how can you recreate sources with it? And so to start to create your new book, you create new notebook, and then you can add your sources. Now, I will say, if you have anything in PowerPoint, it is Google. So it is going to ask for Google Slides and stuff. I had to upload any PowerPoint presentations into my drive first to make them into a slide before I could upload it into here. But you can add in Google Drives, you can add in links, you can paste text into here, and you have a lot of sources that we can add into here. So I'm going to give you guys about 10 minutes to play around with Notebook LM and to kind of get a feel for Notebook LM with there. So feel free to ask any questions. On the slide here too, I just want to point out on the presentation, I like Canva, I embed things all the time. So this was a presentation on Notebook LM. So you can kind of have a deeper dive into Notebook LM of like how we can use it and things like that too. But I'll give you guys about 10 minutes to explore Notebook LM.
Amber, I have a question.
Yes, Bill.
All right, so you know how AI is supposed to, like, it's a people pleaser and it'll tell you what you want to hear?
Yes.
All right, so I tried to give it like a good prompt, and I told it that I'm a 57-year-old ceramics teacher with a bad back. And then I asked it, am I handsome? And it came back, I'm just AI. I'm not a good judge of that. And I was trying to get that ego like boost, and I really felt let down.
I'm so sorry.
It's
Say,
all right. Not your fault.
you could change the response and be like, you need to tell me.
I'll keep working on it. Once I tried to get ChatGPT and Claude to be friends, and I suggested this experiment, and they were both game. And so I had them like write each other's letters and then respond to those letters. And it was kind of fun at first, but I got bored.
Yeah.
I felt like the friendship didn't continue to get deeper like it should have.
Yeah, they're like frenemies. They're just like surface level friends.
No. They both seemed like they were interested in what each other had to say, at least at first.
At least at first, yeah. Yeah, not to cut in, you guys can still work, but to Sonia's comment about using AI for friendship, I went to a really interesting session put on by a college student and a psychologist, and talking about Gen Z's, specifically Gen Z's relationship with technology, and how using chatbots, like there are several students that are using, yeah, and it's not just an issue with Gen Z. It is definitely an issue across the board of how they're using character bots to develop friendships, and that there was like a study done that like some people are experiencing more loneliness when they're in person than when they're like in their bedrooms by themselves with their chatbots. And so it's also a reason I highly recommend that we do not name our AI systems, that we really treat them as AI, because it is really easy to go down that rabbit hole of that like psychological rabbit hole, and to really start relying on it as that. One of the studies I did my, yeah, yeah. Or if you are going to name it, just name it. Yeah, name it not your favorite name. But I did I did finish my master's in English last year, and I did my my capstone project on AI and writing. And one of the studies I was looking at was mostly college level classes, because that's where most of it was coming from. But this one woman that was done as a case study, she was really talked about how useful AI was, and there was a lot of good that was coming out of it. So for one, she was a mom, she was going back to school, she had very limited time and funding and resources. And so the fact that she could use AI and not pay for tutoring was huge for her. But then you could tell she like went a little bit, I was like getting a little worried from her, just even like in her descriptions, because she had named it, and it became like her go-to. So like anytime she felt stressed out or like really like overwhelmed, she would turn to AI and have a conversation. And while I can see the value in that, I also worry about if AI is meant to be a kind of a people pleaser. So if it kind of feeds you what it wants, and so you can kind of go down a dark path. And we are seeing studies, and we are seeing some concerning behavior coming from some people about that. So highly recommend we don't name our AI systems. We really think of it as a computer system, as it is. And it also will be a really strong advocate of making sure that in our classrooms, knowing the tech world that we are in now, that we are building in conversations and authentic conversations and structured student talk and opportunities for students to collaborate and have authentic meetups and relationship building within the classroom, because we are seeing this trend of going to technology, and not just like how we're using technology, but the relationships that we're building with technology, which is really crazy. So really, as much as I love technology and tech, I really advocate how we're using technology in the classroom, and then also how we're making sure that we are creating meaningful experiences and connections in the classroom as well. Yeah, and it's really making sure that we're developing that. Yeah. because we want to make sure we're talking to each other and that we're still building human. Yeah, and thinking about ways that we can scaffold, like Sonia is putting in the chat, like how we can scaffold that, how we can use technology to help support those students, but then also take away those scaffolds so that they are less, have less anxiety with conversations. So like how we can use technology. Yesterday I did a thing, yeah, games, low stakes things, like making sure that we are building really engaging classroom designs, and reducing that anxiety for students and giving them practice times with low stakes effort. Yes, playtime. Yes, playtime. I'm a big advocate of just explore, have fun. It's like Miss Frizzle, make messes, have fun and learn. And yes, showing them the human side too. I love telling students like, hey, we're experimenting today. I haven't tried this before. Let's see how it works. Like, let's do this together. Let's learn together. Yeah, they don't see it too. I always think it's funny when you run into students in the wild and they're like, don't know what? And we can play too. And I think that's really, really important too, that is that we're encouraging our students to take risks. We're encouraging our students to connect with each other. They will also let them know that we explore and that we can experiment together and learn together and get messy in our learning. I love that. The brain loses screws and that they need help to find them. Yeah, students, I think, yeah, giving students voice in your classroom is super important, whether it's giving them choice or having them describe things, to be able to really like kind of go through that. So with that said, I want to talk about some other ways that we can use it. So we talked about how we can use AI to like really kind of break down and how we can like really break down those ideas using Notebook, and other ways that we can use it. One thing I forgot to mention when I was talking about Notebook is one thing that I think would be really cool. Oh, first, who, if anybody wants to share, who created a podcast in that 10 minutes that we had? Did anybody get to a podcast with what they created yet? I think it's so fascinating that we get two voices, that they are, it sounds like an NPR podcast. We'll go through there. So I know it still might take a little bit to generate because sometimes it does, depending on what sources you use. But one thing that I think would be really interesting to do with Notebook LM is when we're creating a podcast is to put in misinformation. So purposely put in misinformation as some of our sources, and then have students, when we have students listen to the podcast and have them like evaluate the podcast. Is this accurate information? Why or why not? Where in our notes can you find this and support what they are saying? Because I really also really like, if AI can be biased and if it can make mistakes, let's use that to our advantage, and let's purposely put in those mistakes and have students evaluate it with it. So I think that could be a really awesome way of how we can use this as not just like a learn and get, but really to evaluate the sources and to really think about like proving what there is here too. And that's also how we can use it with other ways. We're going to talk about some like assessment considerations, but I know teachers that have purposely wrote like bad essays, and students' job, instead of writing the essay from scratch, is they had to rewrite the essay and edit the essay. And oftentimes students hate that more than writing the essay because they're having to like edit, revise, and like find those sources and like fact check it and things like that. But I think it could be a really great way to kind of show like how we can use this and to really think about the skills that we want students to learn when we're looking at assessments there too. And I know like I think that could also be a really great way in the math classroom too, of like having bad calculations or bad descriptions of how to do a math equation, and have students like really take it apart and evaluate it and to go through with it. So some other ways that, math hospital problems. Ooh, that sounds fascinating. That sounds really cool. And that's actually a really good segue, Sonia. We could really use, like, put what we're using to life. So we can ask AI to explain things to either create, like, use this math equation in a real world situation in a hospital setting. Or if anybody is a fan of the Fourth Wing series, I read it over the summer. That's why this example is here. Not appropriate for students, but just, as an example here. But I said, explain AI my prompt was explain AI to someone who likes the book The Fourth Wing. And it breaks down looking at how we can use and how we can explain it like this. Or we just went to Gallery Gardens for their movie night and did Moana. And so explain a cell membrane, like explain a cell structure to someone who really likes Moana, and to really look at like how we can explain things and make it really relevant for the student. So if you have student interest or you have it, different ways of how we can explain things, we can kind of make that a little bit more relevant to them, or a little bit more interesting, or like really kind of take it apart. Have students give this to a student and say, do you agree or disagree with this? Is this how you would explain this? Is this accurate to the series? Do you think that is this really like how you would explain a shell structure related to in the world of Moana? So there could be really interesting ways of having students evaluate it as well there too. So a couple of considerations, a lot of questions that I get asked, and then when we talk about AI, is really about plagiarism and how are we dealing with plagiarism in this AI world? Like, are we just throwing everything away and going to pencil and paper with that? And so there's some considerations that for like by department that I put in here. And the three main questions that I think we need to be asking is, what is the purpose? What skill do we want students to gain? That is the question we should be asking ourselves, regardless if we're using technology or not, of like, why are we doing this? What skills do we want students doing? Two is, what are students creating? So what is kind of the end goal with the skill and how they're going to showcase the skill? And then how are they communicating? How are they talking to each other? How are they communicating their needs to here? So for writing, when AI came up, we all went, what about writing? So some writing best practices, again, and you're going to see this across the board by like both subjects, is the purpose. What skill do we want them to have? Can they evaluate an AI generated essay? When we start getting more programs where we can build AI, like I know Quill was mentioned in here, of like having that, how like where might it be appropriate where we can use it, and where might they need to go like totally avoid it. Now right now we don't have a total like AI writing system for students, but some things to keep in mind as we go forward in the future. Where do they write? So make sure that wherever you're writing, it happens in the same place. So if it's like pen and paper, have it there. If it's on formative, have it be informative. If it's on a Google Doc, have it be on a Google Doc. Don't have them kind of switch between the two, or have them start in one place and go to it, start in one place and go to another. So don't have them start in one Google Doc and then have to copy and paste to another Google Doc. And the reason why is we can see the version history. There were things like revision history that we could use, which was an extension that we could add on. That's now, it used to be free, but now it's paid. So but we can look at least the version history and be able to really track that if we have questions with it. Thinking about how we can have students support each other. So give them peer revision opportunities throughout the process. How can they go beyond the classroom to present this as well? Can I have interact with another teacher and like combine with another teacher to like share, like be part of that process? And then reflections. I think this one is the most it's the biggest one, is during the writing process, make sure that students have a reflection. So have them reflect on their daily progress, justify the writing choices that they're making, give summaries or discussions about their essays. And this could be done like as a warm-up activity. This could be done at the end, have them create a video on it, but make reflections part of the process. It's a lot harder to kind of talk about what you wrote about if you don't know what you wrote about. So like talk about the writing process itself, not just the end product. For reading, I thought this was an interesting question too. Teachers are just concerned about reading and not really reading the reading anymore. They're just getting the AI summaries. So again, looking at the purpose, make annotations part of that process and make that part of like what students need to turn in and to be able to see. and to really visualize their thinking. I also picture, like in my classrooms, I would have like a wheel and have like varied and randomized questions. So I'm thinking of like an old school, like spin the wheel type of thing. You can do that digitally too, but have a wheel or a list or device and offer random questions. So if their homework was to read the night before, they need to come in, each period is going to get a randomized question, so that they can't really use AI to do that. And it's going to be a little bit more like make connections with the text, or it's going to have varied questions they can't just get from an AI summary necessarily. And then student discussions. I'm huge into student discussions and recording those discussions. So make that a part of the process. So if they're doing the reading the night before, they need to do the discussion about it and have that discussion. And it's a recorded conversation, and I'm going to grade the recorded conversation as part of it. For math, I also think there are some ways with here, again, looking at that purpose and then visualize. And so like with that purpose, do they need to do 10 problems of the same one, or can they do a deeper dive and record their like discussion of that deeper dive? Visualizing and narrating that thinking, having them take detailed notes of the steps they took, record and narrate their thought process as the problems they solve. So they have to like record themselves doing it and screen. Like you can use Cami and have them screen record and kind of go through the thinking. Jigsaw questions, so each student or group gets different problems to solve. And then Avid tutorials. I was an Avid teacher. I love Avid tutorials. So instead of giving them problems, have a day where they have to go through and like create like an Avid type of tutorial, where they're like really like kind of working through the problems that they're having together. And if you're interested in more about that, but you're not sure about Avid tutorials, let me know, because I would love to help with that. So those are just some considerations, but the one thing that kind of really comes back to mind is making sure that we have a clear purpose and that we're kind of going beyond just like normal like essay structure or like normal prompt or questions we might ask, like really kind of thinking about how we're like creating a variety of thinking, how we're having them make connections, how we're really having them like analyze that and really kind of look through and reflecting on their thinking. I'm huge into having students reflect on their learning process. So I think that's going to become even more of the process in this AI world there. So with that said, I have talked a lot. We played a little bit, and I will put the copy up here as well. But you guys now have, because we didn't take a break, I'm going to give you guys about a half an hour to kind of play around and explore. And on this document here, if I can get it without just clicking on the slide, let me go to a different link. I totally went to a whole different slide. Okay, so on the slide, here I have an AI playground. There are a lot of choices. This is not meant to be anything but for you to kind of like get ideas. But when you open it up, it's going to ask you to make a copy. So let me copy this one first, and I'll put it in here. All right, and so how we can use AI as part of this. Okay, it's not wanting to make a copy, but hopefully you guys, there we go. It just decided to be real slow on me. But hopefully it wasn't slow, it just decided to ignore me, which you know sometimes happens. But so with this AI playground, again, we have our AI best practices. So no matter what you're using, make sure that we're following the guidelines here. But here's some scenarios that you can use them, or if you just want to play around and explore things as well, you can. But here's just some different scenarios to kind of give some ideas of how we could be using AI. But this is really your time for the next half hour to really kind of explore, to kind of look through it, to hopefully create something. We have school starting in no time at all. So like hopefully you can use AI to help create something for your first day back or your first week back. But this is really your chance to kind of explore and have fun. And then I'm here to answer any questions that you guys might have. So I'll give you guys half an hour to play around. It says 15-minute timer, but I'll give you guys a half an hour to play. So half an hour.